اوكي نبدا. وين الجماعه عشان عندنا في امتحان ولا ايه؟
بالظبط كده. انت بقى تتابعهم كل حاجه عشان انا شجعان اهو بيبقى ضغط شجعان انت شجعان كما شجاع.
Probably before we start, let's just quickly review what we did yesterday. Okay, very quickly. A couple of terms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 terms. Okay, or 9 topics. So out of these 9 topics, is there anyone confident enough to explain all 9? Ross?
Mr. Mazin.
Can you recall any of these things? 8, right? Risk threshold, risk tolerance, positive risk strategies, negative risk strategies, cost reimbursable types of contract, fixed price types of contracts, specification types, and the pie matrix and EMV.
Fixed type اللي هو lump sum contract. الكوست اللي هو cost reimbursement اللي هو cost
reimbursable, cost plus fixed fees. Okay, and cost plus incentive fees, CPIF, and cost plus award fees. These are the 3 types. This is, the cost reimbursable is preferred by the seller. So in order to bring the buyer a little bit closer, we have these other types to encourage the seller to kind of come halfway. On the other side, we have the fixed price. So we have the fixed, FFP is what? Firm fixed price, okay? And fixed price with incentive fees. Okay, these are the 2 types.
Positive risk strategies is looking for positive opportunities in the project.
So what are the 3 strategies for positive risks? We have 3 strategies for positive risk. What are they? Increase the probability, enhancement. And the other, increase the impact, exploitation. And the third one is risk sharing. Right? These are the 3 positive risk strategies. What about the negative strategies? Negative risk strategies. Avoidance, mitigation, and the third one, transference, like insurance. And the 7th one, common to both negative and positive, is called risk. We said there's a strategy which applies for both. When we do nothing, we call it what? Risk what? Acceptance. Risk acceptance. Okay? Right. What is the risk threshold?
الحد الفضل مانجمنت نقدر نتعامل بعدين نقدر نتعامل معاه.
Exactly. Depending on the policy, right? What about risk tolerance? So threshold is, let's say we say the threshold of PBC when it comes to risk is 5. So any risk above 5 we'll deal with it. It's called this the risk threshold, management threshold. What about the tolerance?
Tolerance, it depends on the nature of the risk. So sometimes we don't have tolerance.
Okay.
Risks because it's so sensitive case or the impact is so
right. But okay, so the tolerance is defined by who in the organization? But again by senior management. So it's very close. The threshold defines the tolerance level.
Yes.
Right, and we say if an organization have high tolerance for risk, it means what? If you have high tolerance for risk, it means you can accept more risks than other organizations. If you have low tolerance, right, and if you have 0 tolerance, means what? If we have 0 tolerance towards risk,
should face the
acceptance or not accept any risk. Exactly. So we have to deal with all the risks. Yeah, we cannot afford to have any risk not dealt with. Okay. EMV
is expected monetary.
Expected monetary value, right? And like we've seen, when we give each scenario a monetary value, come in. Expected monetary value, okay? EMV. The pi matrix is what? The pi matrix. Where we use to classify risk according to two elements, P and I. What is P and what is I? When we classify risk based on the two components of risk, which are what we said, every risk has two components, a probability of happening and an impact. Okay, so the pi matrix is where we have probability in high, medium, low, and the impact high, medium, low. Okay. Finally, the specifications, we say we can identify three types of specs. What are the three types? Or the three components. When I described the phone, we said the phone has three different design, performance, and function. Exactly. Okay. So this is very quickly what we did yesterday, and these are the main. What I put on these sticky notes are the exam topics. Okay. So at the end of the day, when you have these 4 or 5 papers here, I would have usually put them around the room. But maybe I felt people might not be relaxed when we have all the curtains up, because all you guys are managers, and people will say, look at these guys, they're sitting there doing nothing all day. Okay, so right, but it's here, you can take them for documentation later. But these are the key topics. So when you revise your PIM book, you just take a photo of each day. These are the topics you want to concentrate on when you browse or when you read the PIM book. Okay, for day 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. Okay, so today I gave each one of you a task to look into the processes in each knowledge area. Okay, we will start with scope and we will leave integration the last thing. Bashmandis Sulaiman, I think, is doing this because we'll explain this as the final kind of processes, but we'll start with process. So what I want you to do now is just give us a brief on what these activities or processes entail. What are the tools and techniques? What is the objective of doing these processes? Now, in reality, the project happens like this. Develop project charter, identify stakeholders. Then you go into the planning process. Now, the planning process is not a linear process. So when you start planning, you know, you're like moving up and down, here and there, but you're working within that area. Okay? Each project manager or every project manager has his or her own philosophy of planning. So if you give me a project to plan, personally, I will do the scope first, right? Then I'll go to risk, right? After I do risk, I come back to the schedule and the costing and go back to risk again. Okay? And then I'll go back to quality. I'll go HR, communication, revise this again, and so on. So everyone has his or her own, right, style or philosophy of planning. There's nothing that tells you have to do planning this way. Now, once you conclude the planning, the initial planning, I don't say once you finish the planning.
You don't finish the planning.
Exactly, because planning never stops. Right? Exactly, right. So you move on to execution. Now, in execution, things happen this way. They happen like this, because execution and monitoring happen in the same time. So when you're dealing with, let's say, quality, you're QAing and QCing, QAing and QCing, and updating the plan, QA, QC, update, QA, QC, update. The same thing here, manage communication, you're controlling communication, then you're managing communication, and so they happen, it's like driving the car, right? If we just monitor and we don't execute, the car stops. If we just execute and we don't monitor, we crash. Okay, so we need to do both at the same time, and that's what's happening here. Once we start closing the project or the procurement, this is the only time when we stop what? Plan. Okay, because we're just handing over here now, right? So that's the case. Now, when we go on these things, who's in charge of scope? We have the guy for scope here, yeah. Time and cost. So we have, it's good, we have all the 3 stars of the show today. Okay. So as I said, so did you manage, guys, to review what I asked you to do? Yeah, you managed to read, do some reading. Bashmandis, what were you responsible for? Which part? HR. Bashmandis, procurement. Okay, risk. Okay, so we have most of the people. Who are we missing? We're missing quality, integration, and stakeholders. Okay. Okay. Right, so let's start with scope, and then once we get to control cost, I will introduce the earned value. So, Bashmandis Usama, you give us some review on what we mean by validate scope and control scope, please.
Control scope مسؤول بالستاندر هو المسؤول عنه.
Good day. In control scope.
يبقى الكلاينت او هو المسؤول عنه.
لا الكنترول سكوب ولا الفاليديت سكوب؟
الفاليديت سكوب.
اوكي.
والبروجكت مانجمنت المسؤول عن الكنترول سكوب.
Okay, so we have control scope here. Means what? We have identified the scope of work, right? We will have planned scope and we have actual scope, right? So actual things happening. So the control processes, all these control processes are aimed to do what? What's the aim of any control process? In general, regardless of its scope or schedule or quality or the term control in project management means what?
To be sure that effectiveness of the plan. Things working according to budget and plan and cost.
Exactly. So we have planned and we have actual. Okay. And what do we call this difference? Deviation, right? Deviation, or another term we use, more scientific, variation or variance. Okay, so control is all about variance analysis, because we might not have any variance or deviation, right? Or not have any, but maybe the deviation or the variance is what within the accepted limits, right? Because if the variance is within the accepted limits, we don't have to go and fix anything. So, yes. Because if we just go in and with any minor deviation, we're in with our, everything. Okay, there's a variance here. We need to correct things. That's not wise project management. Okay, wise project management is done through what we call the technique of management by exception. Management by exception means what? Management by exception is the opposite of what is known as, you heard of the term micromanagement? Micromanagement means what? Micromanagement means what? It means going into the details of everything. So if I gave Wahib a task, so Wahib, I want you to do A, B, C, D, okay? And I want you to deliver A by the end of this week, B by the end of next week, and so on and so forth, right? So it's Sunday morning, Wahib is working on A, okay? So I go to his office, so how is work going, Wahib? No, you're not supposed to use that pen. Can you please use the red pen? Thank you very much. And please, next morning, don't come wearing this shirt, please, because it's not suitable for this task, okay? Monday morning, I come to Wahib. Oh, you're using the red pen? Oh, well, I think you should go back to the blue pen, right? So I'm micromanaging Wahib, right? Managed by exception means what? I wait until Thursday. Wahib delivers A, good job. I don't have to worry. Week 2, Wahib delivers B by Thursday, fine, no problem, right? And he never asked for any help, that's it, he's doing his job, right? Week 3, he did not deliver C, on Thursday. Now I interfere. So here, what's the problem? This is called management by exception. If things are going well, don't interfere. It's like the autopilot system in the aircraft. Once you put the project on autopilot and all the systems are working fine, everybody knows his job or her job, don't interfere unless there is something. So control here, it's very important that a project manager should be given a level of tolerance for what? Scope, cost, and schedule by senior management. Means if Bashmuhandis Ahmed, you have a deviation of cost plus or minus 10,000 riyal, it's fine. You don't have to go back to me. You work it out yourself. If you have a scope deviation of plus or minus 10%, that's fine. If you have a schedule variance of plus or minus 5 days, fine. Don't escalate it. This is called the tolerance level given to the project manager. So this is where real project management happens. Because this is theory, templates. Anybody can do nice plans and stuff. Real project management happens here in the control. Okay? So we say control scope, Shandis Usama, is where we control the deviation as a project team. And validate scope is done by the client. So when we create, we will see when Bashmuhandis Suleiman tells us, when we create the deliverables here, the final deliverables, we send it to the client, and the client does inspection in it, and they validate the scope and they accept. So the outcome of validate scope is accepted deliverables by the client. Right? Remember, here we check for completeness and correctness, while here the client accepts the problem. Okay? Fine? Okay, so control schedule. Who's doing? Yeah? Okay, so can you give us some, you want me to put the process up or no need? Shall I put the process slide?
Yes, okay.
A little bit hot or it's okay?
This is شغل.
Yeah.
وحتى وسع.
It's process number, what's the number? 39? 39, okay, yeah. So control schedule.
After we define the scope, we have the time of construction. We have a starting date and end date.
Okay.
The project management team will prepare, managing, developing the project plan, work plan.
Okay, so we have a schedule
We have
for
a
all
schedule
the tasks or
with all the
activities.
activities,
and the
define
duration.
the activities, resources, and estimate actual duration of each activities.
Okay.
And when we establish this schedule, we will see some of the activities are float zero, means critical activities. There are some activities, critical activities. When we establish these activities, you will find some activities are critical activities. The float is zero. The path passing through this critical activity, we call it critical path.
Okay.
So we have the baseline of the shutdown schedule. So when we come to execution, we have to monitoring the schedule.
Right.
Monitoring is
So why don't we have any process in execution for cost, schedule, and scope? We don't have any processes here, right? We only have processes in control.
We have
Monitor
control, all monitoring, control the progress of the project.
Right.
In the site, actual time taken for each activity.
Right.
Is the project delaying? Is it any critical activity is affecting? So
Right.
which will directly
Right.
influence the
Right. So my question is, how come we don't have any activities here or any processes here in execution for particularly these three things. We only have control here, but we don't have anything here for these three. Why?
Because if you don't execute schedule, you execute activities.
Right. So who executes that? So it should be who's executing activity. The project team, labor contract, which is not the job of the project manager. Remember here we're talking about from a project manager's perspective. So the message here is you as a project manager, you're only controlling the work.
Only monitoring and controlling.
Exactly. Somebody else is doing the work.
Yes.
Right?
Wherever the critical activity affects, you will immediately, and sometimes some activity related to critical activity delays.
Right.
Sometimes you can say some critical activities are not critical. If it's delayed also, it will not affect the overall schedule.
Right.
So this way you manage. And you will compress. When you make a recovery schedule, you will compress activity, compression technique.
Okay, so the control process itself consists of what? What are we doing here? We are doing, as I said here, right? We have our project schedule, which is our baseline.
This is our baseline.
And
the data collections from the execution side.
Exactly. So work performance data is the actual.
Actual.
Right? We compare the two.
We calculated in the schedule from our past assumptions and from experience or something like that. We prepare and discussions, etc.
Right.
When we go to the site, the actual input is coming from there. That actual data. This actual data. Sometimes we have to some parameters of calculating the duration of the activities.
Okay. Don't go into details. You don't have to go into details. Just stay at the high level, very simply. So you have your schedule baseline, your plan, with your actual data collected. You compare the two. If there's any variance, you add. No variance, business as usual. Nothing. Okay. So this is called the performance reviews. Right. Okay. And we end up with what? We come up with work performance information. So this could be reports saying everything is fine, or there's a deviation, or we need to do this, or change requests.
Here sometimes variance. Change request variance by the stakeholders.
Right.
Sometimes they give additional scope with additional time.
Exactly. So if there's anything we need to change, we issue a change request. And this inputs and outputs, if you check all the control processes, you will see the same things appearing in all the control process, because the concept is the same. I'm comparing planned to actual and then acting. If anything is happening and I need to change things, I issue a change request. If it's business as usual, I only issue my work performance information, which is my reports, my periodical reports. Okay? So this is what's happening in these kind of issues. Now there's another thing that happens, which is leads and lags. How do we use these?
Some activities have leads more. Example, say building external work.
Right.
External work is doing, and we can do the same time the landscaping work outside.
Okay.
It will not affect the it will save time.
Exactly. So you use these techniques to respond to management requests to compress the schedule. So if they say, well, that's fine, but can you please speed things up a little bit so you can play with your leads and lags?
This make a big rule in the compressing the schedule.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
Updating means updating the information from the site according to all these inputs from the data. So sometimes when activity, your calculation was wrong, your assumption was wrong.
Okay.
So you have to update from the site information. The schedule.
Exactly. So what do we update? What do we update here?
Update the schedule, activity duration, compressing.
Okay.
Updating the cost also. Updating the resources.
Right.
Maybe your resource calculation is less. You have to input more resources.
Exactly. So as a result of this monitoring and controlling,
you will update the schedule.
Other things. It could impact other things.
Also, you don't update the risk also. which will affect the changes in the procedure of the
You don't update the
risk also should be
update schedule upon probability of risk to be happening.
risk to be happen, yeah. Probability of that risk also to be updated because the risk concept is also changed according to the new schedule.
So, for example, if you have major delays in your schedule or schedule, okay, and you realize this delay will have a further impact on other
impact
stuff,
on the risk.
maybe you have a new risk appearing,
No risk appear.
right?
Yeah.
So you end up updating everything. So in monitor and controlling, right? Now, when monitor and controlling, so let's say I'm driving my car and I'm monitoring, let's say, the road. Okay, now monitoring the road, mainly the speed, right? So I see a radar, right? So at one stage I'm tuning into speed. So there's a radar, I slow down, right? Okay, I see a car in front of me, I slow down, I deviate, or I try to avoid that car, right? Monitoring and controlling the road, I check 80 kilos to the next, let's say, petrol station. I check my fuel, I decide to refuel, right? So monitoring and controlling is a very integrated process. You don't tune your brain or your day to, today is scope management day only. Tomorrow it's cost control. It doesn't happen this way, so
Yes.
it happens in an integrated way. That's why we have something called integration processes. But this is just meant to explain the individual process. But in reality, it happens in an integrated manner, this whole thing. Okay? So that's control schedule, control scope. Now we have control cost. Let's look into control cost. What we mean by control cost.
Control cost. Can you please put the picture, the diagram?
This one?
Of the
You mean the
input, output, not the
this one?
Tools techniques.
the arrows and the one
A table?
not
The table? Which one?
You have
This one?
No, it's not
Page
the
number. Give me the page number.
It's picture. It's like a picture. Show
Yeah, the
the process going into the cost control. Cost outside.
The process?
I don't think it's here. Plus, it's okay. Keep. No problem.
Mm.
No problem.
I don't think maybe we don't have it in the presentation.
I think it's okay. Okay. Before, when we were in the planning period, we already finalized the plan cost management and the estimate costs.
Okay.
So we know how the activities will cost us to be finished and what are the costs. And we already determined the budget. And we took an idea about the refine the requirements to
Okay.
be finished the project or to get the profit at this stage. For example, we have this amount of profit or this amount of finalizing activities. Okay, now we have the control cost. The control cost is a process of monitoring the status of the project, so we can update the project costs and we can manage any deviation of the cost baseline.
Right.
And the key benefit of this process that is provide us to recognize any variance from the plan, so we can make corrective actions and maybe minimize risks.
Right. So who helps the project manager in doing this?
We have
Procurement and okay, but mainly you have a guy called project accountant.
Cost control engineer.
Right. So the project accountant is the one who actually provides yes,
who have the
provides the data.
the history of
Exactly.
what's going on.
Exactly.
What is in the
Where we
budget?
spend
What
our
is
money.
expenditure?
Exactly. How much money is spent? Which
Yeah, how
is we
much
call
money
the
is
actual cost. We'll explain now in earned value. Okay.
We have this process happens after execution starts.
Yes.
After activities start processing, after works is going on, we see our cost where it's going, where we are paying money.
Right.
Okay, and then we take the performance data from the work.
Exactly. So the work performance data is always provides the actuals.
The actuals.
Right. Versus what is your reference here, right? The baseline. You have it there in the cost management plan or in the funding requirements, for example, right? So this is your baseline.
Yes.
This is what you plan to do. You compare it to this, right? Through what we known as earned value management. Right? Have you read about earned value management?
This is to assess the. This is to assess.
Let's Wahid, because he was the one responsible. Did you read about it? No. Okay. So do you know about earned value
This is to
management?
assess the impact, the variance
Okay.
in the impact on the cost in the form of project variance, cost variance,
Time
cost. Cost variance. There is two items there. This is CI and it's an index.
We don't want details.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just
Sure value.
just give us an idea of what's the earned value is. What's
To
earned
assess
value?
the magnitude of variation. To assess the magnitude of how much variation is happened.
Okay.
To assess the magnitude of variation. This is why the schedule variance in the schedule wise time variance, also in the schedule performance index,
Okay.
SPI.
Okay.
This gives the actual fund, how much is allocated for this activity, including the resources, manpower, and what has happened at the site. This variance.
Okay. So it's a technique.
It's a technique.
Okay.
Cost of the skill for schedule
Yeah.
work and the cost of actual work.
Work done at the site, yeah.
Yes, we can get the variance. Okay. Or four criteria. Two of them, the cost of scheduled work or cost of actual work.
Impact
Yes,
of the-
yes, exactly. And the value of the actual,
The
the value of the
material, yes.
actual work provided.
Price includes material cost, labor cost, the HR cost, and the
Right.
material cost you can control. You have a control on that, but some other variance is there.
بس خلينا بس المثل الاول نعمل ريفيو مع الناس على الانبوت لان في حاجات
Yes, sure, sure.
مكتوبه في
Sure,
الانبوت
sure.
نعمل ريفريش
جدا.
ايه الانبوت اللي انا بخش بيه
جدا. الكنترول كوست هنرجع للجدول.
اوكي
الكوست كوست.
الكنترول كوست
Control
Okay.
cost. Control.
So-
Project management plan. Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
Go ahead.
لا يعني البروجكت فاندنج يعني مثلا requirements يعني this is the project value, this is the right cost مثلا the project manager should be aware about these details. الورك performance data, البرودكتيفيتي ريتس بتاعت subcontractors, laborers,
Yes.
these issues يعني this is input
For controlling the cost.
No,
Yes.
that not only this input, this cost also involves other resources, all the resources.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Before when we did the plan cost management, for example, after a period of execution, we had planned that in that period the funding requirements will be in that particular amount.
Right. Yes.
So we compare our actual to our planning.
Exactly. So that's why the project manager should have a background on the funding requirements.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes
To be able to make some decisions.
give some tolerance to the project manager. He'll give some tolerance.
ده خليل هو بتاع الاستيميشن
هو بتاع الtolerance.
هو بتاع التولرنس
يعني first man, Mr. Shanawaz, he has the right to make tolerance. Tolerance maybe can be 90% from the project, 100% of
Okay. So I'll introduce now a very important concept. Now, when we talk about controlling these three items or three components, which are the heart of our project. This is the core of our project: scope, schedule, cost. Okay. Now, okay. So these three things, what we call the triple constraints. Okay. Scope, time, cost. Right. When we ask for reports from the project team on these 3 items, and they report on these 3 items as 3 separate islands. Okay? Means what? They tell you, we have spent so far 50% of our budget, we still have 50% available. Oh, well done, guys. Yeah, that's good. Right? But this is separate island. Now, they tell you, the funny thing about, I come to time, so scope, they tell you, we have so far completed 33% of our scope, and we still have 67 to come. Oh, that's good. So we're progressing well. Right? And the funny thing about time, they tell you, we are 6 months into the project. Hey, congratulations. So now what's the problem with this type of reporting when we report in separate items?
There's no relation between
missing links.
Missing links.
Right? So you did 33%, but how much money were we supposed, or how much, what's this, at this stage, we're supposed to finish what?
What?
You never told me.
What is your income?
Right?
What is your expenditure in that?
Exactly, right? So to do this, in order to combine all 3, we have a technique called earned value. Earned value management, or earned value analysis, EVM or EVA. Okay? Now, at the moment, I think you guys using that. Do you use EVM in your reports? No? Okay. Now, let's explain what EVM means. Okay? So, I'm just going to give you a very simple example to introduce the values of earned value, which is earned value, actual cost, and planned value, and then we'll see how we use that to calculate the variances. Now, let's assume that we have a project to build a 4-sided fence, okay, and each side of this fence cost us $1. Okay, so each side will cost $1, and it will take 1 day to complete. Okay, and I'm just using 1 as a unit to simplify the process of calculation. Okay, project manager submitted this report to you by the end of day 3. So this is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Okay, let's just done. Day 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And
عرب مين لو هو زرار ستوب موجود لو ده بقى كاميرا يبقى هو مش شغال
التأكيد بتاعك أنا نصح من هنا الأشغال جعلوا لما تقول بس لا ما أعرفش ما شغال منطور العسل عشان تزرع بس
okay, so this is the project manager's report by the end of day 3 of this project. So this report is submitted here. Okay, to you as the head or the person responsible for managing this project. let's say the sponsor. Okay, so side 1 is completed, and this is the money spent, the actual money spent, $1.25. Side 2 is 75% completed, and money spent is $1. Side 3 is 25% completed, and money spent is 20 cents. Okay, so this is my project report, or the project manager's report on this project. Now, I will ask you some questions in order to assess the situation here. Now, by this stage, now we say 4 sites, 4 days, $4, right? Now, by the end of day 3, what was the original plan? I.e., what's the value, right, of the work? $3.
Sides $3.
Three sides,
So
$3.
exactly. So this is called the planned value, right? They call this value the planned value. So it means what? So what's the PV by the end of day 1? Day 2, day 3, day 4. So these are planned value, i.e., the value of, and we're valuing here things in terms of the dollars, the dollar value. I'm even expressing days by dollar value. So by the end of day 3, our planned value was supposed to be 3. Let me just put that.
عايزين الورقة دي تشبه كل حاجة عشان هنصورها.
Okay.
الورقة دي أنا عايز أصورها بعد ما أخلص.
Okay, so our planned value, also known as PV. Okay, طبعا في الترميمولوجيا القديمة اللي هو ACWP, BCWP ده خلوه خلاص. Okay, so my planned value here is what? 3. $3, right?
Plan duration, plan time.
Right. Question 2. According to this report of this project manager, how much money did we spend so far?
2.45.
So 1.25 plus 1 plus 2, regardless of what we did. We just want to know how much money we spent, and we call this value the actual cost. Actual cost, also known as AC, and it is how much you said? On this?
2.45.
$2.45. Okay, so far so good. Now, question number 3, which is the most important question, is what is the value of the work actually completed? What is the value of the work actually completed?
100% plus 25 the average.
2.
80%.
2. Actual value is 2.
Why 2?
1.
One side completed,
Yeah.
75.
75% of that, 25%.
Yeah, like looks like 267.
Yeah. 2.
2.
2.
Why 2.67? So we have
67% yeah. 2 by 30 yeah.
Okay, exactly. So we have a value of $2 of work
Yes.
on the ground.
Yes. 2.
We have one complete side, 75% of one side, 25% of the third one. So the total is 2. We call that the earned value. Okay? So the concept of earned value means
The invoice value.
the value of work, or EV, that is actually created and sitting on the ground. Okay? And here in our case it's $2. Okay? So from these figures, the project sponsor can make some really calculated decisions and understand the project much better. The last one? Okay, so here, these are two ones.
This is due to actual cost divided by planned value.
No. I'll explain to you.
لا
Okay. Let me answer and then you can explain your point. So planned value واضح. Okay. Actual cost واضح. طيب earned value, okay, we forget about how much money we spent and what is our plans, what we're supposed to do. We will just concentrate and see on the ground, on the site, what is the value of work actually created. So we go on site and we see a full side of the fence completed, 75% of another one, and 25% of a third one. So the total value of this work created is $2, according to our original what? Original definition.
This is our contract.
Yeah. Okay, so we say the earned value is $2. Right? Now here, straight away you can see something very important. When you compare the earned value to your actual cost. Exactly. So here we are over budget by how much? By 45 cents. We're overspending. Why? Because we're spending more than the value of what we're creating. Okay? The value يعني بالعربي قيمة العمل. Okay? Right? Now, that's one dimension which is very clear, and this gives us what is known as the cost variance, CV. So comparing these two gives me my cost variance, known as CV. Okay? Now, what about another important variance? So, I'm worried about cost variance, and the other things should be what? Schedule variance. Yeah? So when I compare earned value to planned value, I get my schedule variance. Does it make sense?
No. Time is different.
Okay.
Related to the cost.
Okay, let me go back again. So when I say this is the amount or the value of work I created now, $2. But according to my plan,
It was $3.
By this day, I should have done what?
Means this
Exactly. So this gives me the dimension of schedule
we are
variance.
less behind.
So we're behind by
One day.
We call it's $1, and $1 compares to 1 day. So we're behind by $1. We express it in terms of dollars. Okay, so we're behind by 1 day, right? And this is called the schedule variance. Schedule variance, which is known as SV.
Actual value not
$1. So are we ahead of schedule or behind schedule? Behind by
1 day. 1 day or $1.
whatever we're creating here falls short by $1.
$1 or 1 day.
Yeah, my $1 equals 1 day here. That's why I said here $1 1 day.
If we change your cost of day,
Yeah, we have to work out the mathematics. So if we say our day is worth $1,000, for example, this will be 1,000. Again, equals 1 day. So you have to find your scale. That's why I use $1 1 day to explain the concept. But usually it's more complicated than that. Okay? طيب يا باشمهندس I'll run again.
ليه انا لقيت بالي $2؟
ايوه هنرجع تاني من الاول نشوف. اوكي؟ انت طلعت واحنا بنشرح في الرينج
ثلاثة اوكي خلاص.
البلان فاليو والاكشوال كوست واضح؟
اوكي.
الاكشوال كوست اللي هي ماني وي سبند
مظبوط.
according to the account.
مظبوط.
اوكي؟ جينا للايرند فاليو.
حلو.
So the earned value is the value of work actually created, delivered on the ground, which is what? One side completed, $1, 75%, 75 cents, 25%, 75 cents, so $2. So this is my earned value. Comparing the earned value to the actual cost gives me the cost variance, right? Money we spent versus money or value of work we created. Cost schedule variance, comparing the earned value with the plan. عشان يديني dimension تبع schedule. Right? So we are behind by 1 day and we are overspending by 45 cents. So this makes more sense than the separate island reporting. And this technique is called earned value management. Okay? Now, what's the challenging thing about this technique? This is not difficult, that's easy. This is not difficult, but this is the difficult one. But in construction, it's relatively easier because you can assign value to your, because you're producing tangible things. So you can maybe say you work by square meter or by whatever, I don't know. But this system is used in construction. It requires hard work initially, but once you do it,
Cost loading. You load the cost loading.
yes.
From the cost loading activities, the Primavera gives each weekly from the schedule calculate and give you the planned values of
Yes.
each week. Planned value in each week the Primavera will give you.
Right. Exactly. So in Primavera it helps you to do that.
After cost loading the input to the activity, you will get bi-weekly the planned value of each weekly.
Right.
So from that, so you have planned value. Then L value, you have the progress invoice, progress schedule.
Right.
From the progress schedule, progress percentages. Again, you have another. You implement the
plan against actual, you can get the value.
You get the
Either time
yes,
or
that's
cost or
yes.
Yeah, but do you use it now? You use
Yes,
that?
we use.
Okay, let me just show
This is
you
the way.
an example here of
Very
a progress report from Heathrow Terminal 5 project, and that's how the report.
This is the cost loading.
The report, this is a monthly report, it's 147 pages.
Inside the project we are using this.
Okay, let me just show you how they report. Okay, so you can see all the reports are based on earned value. So they report on plan, cost versus.
Actual cost calculation is you need all the inputs. Because for the sometimes using steel for all the.
Okay, so you see this is the earned value reporting they use here. Actual spend, the earned value, and then they provide the deviation visually. I'll send you, Bashman, to have this report also as a good sample of things. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Now, so let's just write down the equations here. We have an equation here, very important equation. So SV equals earned value minus what? Minus planned value. And CV equals earned value minus actual cost. Okay? Sometimes instead of SV, we have something called SPI, Schedule Performance Index. Okay?
Yes.
And the Schedule Performance Index, okay, it gives us the same concept as this, but instead of taking the difference, we take what? EV divided by PV. And the CPI, the Cost Performance Index, is EV divided by AC. Okay? Right, so these are four key formula we have here. Okay, SV, CV, SPI, and CPI. Okay, they both work with the same two values, but here I take the difference, here I take the quotient. Okay?
Ratio in percentage.
Yes. Yeah, it will come up with percentage wise. So what's the SPI here? What would be the SPI here?
1.5.
2 divided by 3. 2/3. Yeah.
26.6.
Right? Okay? And so on. So this is the concept of earned value. Now in the exam, okay, you will get questions related to these things. All you have to know is these formula. So they give you some scenarios, okay, to calculate something related to these formula. We have other formulas as well. You can look at them. These are the key ones. These are the key formulas. So this helps us in reporting in a much convenient way. Okay. So in here you have all the formula. So you have the SV, SPI, CV, CPI. Okay. And this is the SV. Right. Now, if you plot the SPI, okay, you get something like this. Now, what's the perfect SPI and CPI? Perfect is 1, yeah? Because my EV is directly the same as my PV, right? So this is it. Now, this is a very healthy project.
Up and down.
Yeah, very healthy because the oscillation is happening around, yeah, the average. Now, if a project manager gave me a CPI curve with a straight line here, I will fire him.
Yes.
He's probably lying. Yeah?
No way. He's a liar.
He's probably lying.
He's cooking something.
Exactly, right? Now this is healthy. Now this is not healthy. Right? Why? Now this is not healthy.
Yeah, but
Right? It's normal, but it's not healthy because there's a what? There's an overall degradation of the performance. Yeah. So if this report is given to me here, what do we call this? We call this what? No, from here. So the report is here, but the project manager or the sponsor drew this. It means what? What do we call this part here in the future?
Loss.
Forecast.
Forecast.
Yeah. So this is forecasting the performance according to what? To the trends. Yeah.
Gradually
Yeah.
reducing.
So this is your history, Mr. Project Manager. So most probably in the coming
You will
weeks
end up
this
like
will
this.
happen.
You will end
So
up-
I will interfere. Okay? So that's your SPI curve. Now let's look into another. So this is your final report using the earned value technique. Okay? The solid line, right, is your planned value. Now why can we plot the planned value from A to Z? Because we know how long the project will take and what's the value of each day. So this is my reference point, right? Alongside that, as I go, I plot my earned value and my actual cost. Now, if my actual cost is here, above my PV, it means what? Or above the earned value. It means what's happening in this project in terms of cost and in terms of schedule.
We are losing project.
We're overspending.
Overspending.
Why? Because the actual cost is more than.
Exceeding the budget.
Exactly. What about schedule wise?
Schedule wise is okay.
Schedule wise, I'm fine. Why? Because the earned value.
Is less than
Yes,
So
correct.
schedule wise is fine.
Huh?
Schedule.
Against value, the date, time.
So this is today, yes.
Yeah.
And these are the
Not
values.
fine.
Huh?
Not fine.
Why? Because I am doing what? Creating
Creating.
less than what I'm supposed to be
Supposed to
creating.
complete.
Yeah. So I am over budget, I am behind schedule.
Schedule.
Right? According to this curve. Right? So how do you calculate that? This is what we do. So the CV is the difference between your EV and AC, gives you your cost variance here. Right? So from that visually, okay, the project officer or whoever is responsible can get a lot of data out of this simple technique called the earned value management. As I said, the challenge is doing what? Here I said, one day, $1. The challenge is how do you work out this formula for your projects? How do you value your work in order to come up with a simple relationship between your daily activities, value versus value of work created? Okay, so I don't know how you do it. That's something to do with construction. But I saw some projects where they value each. For example, if you're building a building, let's say 50 floors building, they value each floor with a certain amount of money. Exactly, yeah. And then they say how long does it take to build a floor? Usually how long does it take to build one floor of building? Standard building. Aziz Tower.
The plan is
Including finishing wise?
Yeah, everything.
Everything.
Not like that.
2 months. Say. 2
It
months.
doesn't happen like that because maybe you build the structure, then the takfil, then in finishing. But in general, if you want to give each
Concrete
floor,
and this we are planning for
Three-
three slabs a month.
Uh-huh.
3 for concrete slabs.
okay.
Repeated story. Typical story.
So roughly one floor will
2 months.
take
2
how much?
months.
2 months.
Let's say.
Okay.
Let's say
So
one floor.
one floor,
One floor.
Including finishing.
including finishing.
Including finishing.
2 months. Okay.
Including electromechanical.
Exactly.
Handing over. Huh?
But you're not far, so.
Yeah, it was just an example.
Some-
Don't worry, Wahib, don't worry. This is not.
I know,
This is not reality.
If you calculate 15
Wahib is getting worried.
We need 5 months.
You know what this project is going to take.
What? 2 months?
It happened there, خلاص.
This is just an
It's very happy.
explanation.
One floor about 2 months, finishes in the year. You will catch.
Look, if really it will take 2 months, I will tell them you have 1 month and a half straight. Straight.
So that's why they tell you 3 months.
Yes.
See? So that's why. Okay, so roughly how much does it cost to build a floor? Roughly. If you combine all the costs. Yeah, so the whole thing.
6,000
3,000 riyal per square meter.
Uh-huh. And the floor is how
Say
big?
8,800 square meter.
So roughly how much to build
2.4
one?
million.
4 million?
2.4 million.
2.4 for one floor? For one floor? Really? And how many floors you building?
25.
مين قال لك تقريبا 150 مليون؟
ايوه صح.
بعدين في عندك تحت الأرض إذا ما حكينا فيه.
You have what, parking? Basement? How many floors? Two basement?
Around 4,000 square meters.
Okay. Which will probably cost more, definitely, right? When you build
Because of shoring,
Yeah.
okay.
مش هو خسران.
No, you don't have this much area. You have only 600 square meter.
Okay, right. So anyway, so that's what we're doing. So 2 months to build one floor. That will cost 2,000. So you can say, well, a floor 2,000. So your report can be based on floors. If you want to base your project, your reports on cost, you have to work out what's the cost of 1 day. Or what's the value of work, supposedly. Maybe you divide 2,000 by 60 or whatever, right? But you have to work out the formula for this in order to come up with what I did here in terms of the earned value. Okay, this is the main challenge for your earned value. Working out this, a day is compared in terms of cost, how much. Okay, so this is our earned value. Now, we have other formulas as well. Just gonna look at it. Now, let's just go look into this diagram. Now, I have a term here or a value called budget at completion. Budget at completion is what? From here. From this excess.
Land value.
$4.
Yeah.
Right? So the BAC, right, is your total money you budgeted for that project. Budget at completion, we call it, right? Now, sometimes during the project, okay, so let's say this project is at this stage, right, and I changed the project manager. So another project manager came on board because I have some issues with the project manager. I'm not confident about his cost control activity. So a new project manager comes on board. Okay? The new project manager who's on board is asked to revise the BAC and come up with an EAC. EAC stands for estimate at completion. Right? Because we don't have confidence in this BAC. We feel there's a huge deviation. Right? So EAC is a revised BAC. Right? Now, to calculate a new EAC, we have 3 ways of calculating the EAC. Right? The first one is to tell the project manager, listen, all what you have done in terms of your planning is crap, useless. we will calculate a new EAC. So we scrap everything. Now, how do we calculate a new EAC? By adding the AC, actual cost, and do what? A new estimate to completion. And we add the two. So it's like we're starting a new, fresh project. Okay? And it works like this. Let me just draw the...
But it's very effective.
Huh? It's very effective, yes, if the project manager is not doing a good job. Okay? You start from scratch. So this is the start of my project. This is the delivery date. Finish. Okay? And this is the timeline of my project. So, if at this stage of my project I have a new project manager in place, okay, the new project manager already have this BAC, which is budgeted at completion, okay, of the old project manager, right? But this is not accurate. It's not acceptable, right? So he at this stage needs to do what? He already have this. If you're gonna scrap this off and don't use it, in this, what's the value we have here in terms of spending? AC, actual cost, right? And he does what? He adds to it ETC, estimate to completion. So he'll start doing a new estimation as if he is doing a new project. Adding these two together, AC plus ETC, gives us what? The EAC. Exactly. Okay, so this is ETC, and this is actually EAC, which it will be the value here in the future. Okay?
For the remaining activity.
Yes, exactly, ETC. So this is one way of doing it.
This up to there.
Huh? This one?
Yeah.
No, from oh yeah, I'll say exactly. No, but I already adding the AC. Oh, you mean the EAC?
Yes.
Yes, the EAC covers everything.
Yes,
right.
it should be from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly, because it's covering everything.
This is the new one.
Exactly. So it's a revised BAC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's why. Now, if you have some trust in the project manager's calculation, you can, instead of ETC, you still have AC here, but you add to it what? The difference between the BAC and the EV. Right. Right? So you take away earned value from the BAC and you add it to AC to get a new revised BAC.
What is BAC?
Budgeted at completion, which is the original.
Yeah,
The original.
Yeah.
Okay. So instead of saying ETC, they replaced ETC by what? By BAC minus EV.
EV
EV, the earned value, the value of work created. Okay. If you want to be more accurate, you regulate this value BAC minus EV by the cost performance index, because the cost performance index, remember, is what? Is your performance. So you take the CPI and you, what we call in mathematics, you regulate this value by the CPI to get award. Now these values will be very close together, but we use them depending on the situation. Okay? In the exam, these are not used. So this is for your general knowledge. You won't get any question in the exam like this. حلوين؟ خلاص نكلمهم. Okay, let's take a small break. You have any question so far? No? Small break. 10 minutes. CPI عملنا؟ CPI والSPI هما ايوه نفس الCB والSB بس instead of taking the difference we divide. So SPI is EB over PV على percentage. CPI EV divided by AC.
Yes.
Thank you.
Have a break. Have a Kit Kat.